I cannot believe we are finally getting the Toxic Avenger. This has been years in the making. In fact, it has been released already. It was released in 2023. It showed at multiple film festivals, and we were waiting patiently for a distributor because an unnamed producer said it was unreleasable because of its violent content. Now, we've seen some very violent films in the cinema over the last couple of years. Terrifier films have played worldwide. So I'm so curious why it took so long to get this one, where we're finally going to see it today, but I am happy. I am so happy that I get to see it at my local cinema. This, of course, is a remake of the original Toxic Avenger from 1984, a dark comedy, body horror, slapstick trauma film that is very intense with some of its content. Rewatching it, it's very jarring, very, very jarring. But I'm really excited for this remake because of the cast. We've got Peter Dinklage, Jacob Tremblay, and Elijah Wood, just to name a few. The film also stars Macon Blair, who directed the movie, and I am very curious to see if it will hit all of the same beats as the original. The original, if you didn't know, is the story of a new kind of anti-hero called the Toxic Avenger, who was a meek, geeky mop boy, but he fell into a vat of toxic waste and he becomes this creature defeating the bullies, really. And these bullies are awful. But there is a love story that is in the original, and I want to see if they do that in the remake. I have not watched any trailers. I just wanted to go in blind because we've waited for so long. I want to see, is it actually gory? Was it worth waiting this long? Could it be that bad? And of course, I'm just really excited for all of the actors in this film. Remaking a pretty dark comedy in 2025 should be quite interesting. And I did just rewatch the original, so it's fresh in my mind. Let's go check out the new Toxic Avenger. I've been waiting so long to see this. Let's go. And of course, I'm gonna let you know whether it's worth your time completely spoiler free. Let's go. Hi friends, I just got out of the Toxic Avenger. That was such a ride, and you know what? It is enjoyable. I don't want to say for what it is, but as a project itself, it's pretty incredible that they made that. I was honestly cackling through so much of that. I nearly cried laughing at one point, but I think it's the consistency that took me out of parts of this. So the film, I'm so pleasantly surprised it was completely different. The original is so simple and so stupidly simple and so stupid on purpose. It knows what it is. But this remake is completely different subject matter. I had no idea. I mean, I knew who the actors were in the film, but I had no idea who was going to play who. And it's a completely different scenario where in the original, it's about, you know, this geeky teen who gets into this toxic waste. In this one, it's a stepfather, which is important because he is looking after his son after his partner has passed away. So his main role in his life is trying to be a good stepdad. And he feels like he can't step up to the plate. He's quite passive. And then, you know, things happen with him. And so Jacob Tremblay plays his son, and Toxie is Peter Dinklage. Taylor Page also has a huge role in this, which I know her from Zola, which is an incredible film, completely different to this, but very good. And it was exciting to see how they weaved her storyline into it. So it becomes this kind of multi-layered story about a bad corporation and how things transpire, making a new type of anti-hero. But it's completely different to the original in every sense, although it still has the slapstick, the dark comedy, and more gore, way more gore. I also completely forgot that Kevin Bacon was in this film, and he plays a huge role. He was so fun in this movie, and I think that that's what I really like in seeing films that don't make sense to be real. This movie is so shticky, it's so over the top, so theatrical, a lot of practical effects. There is CGI, but a lot of practical effects. But then also there's this element of it that really feeds into the old school kind of like comic book style. And it felt like I would even put it past that, like a Gotham, old school, theatrical built universe, and I was really pleased to see them dive into that even more so than the original ever tried to. It becomes this kind of dark evil power to do with the toxic waste. So they turn it into a huge issue and a huge problem, but they really give the town a lot of life. And there is a lot of nod to other trauma films. I haven't watched a lot, but the things I have seen, I could pick up throughout the movie. So there's a lot of nods and a lot of Easter eggs along the way. But there is a lot of detail at the start. I was so surprised how many different characters, and Elijah Wood's character, Kevin Bacon's character. Then they have like the whole cop department. There's so much going on at the start of this film, and it is such a fast-paced lead in to the situation and how it transpires. I just could never have guessed how they would have changed it. It feels so appropriate, but it also is completely different to the original. It's like an updated, modified version, keeping all the fun, edgy stuff, but just doing it a little bit differently, commenting on it in a very different way. And so for all the vibrancy and fun in the film, the one-liners were zingers. I was laughing so loud, but I will say the consistency was the issue I had, where I felt like it kind of slumped in the middle. And you had no idea where it was really going, and the whole point of it, it's so silly and over the top that you're just following it along for the characters. But it does get a little bit stuck in its own way, because I feel like the story is all over the place with what they're trying to say within the runtime. And where the original was so simple, A to B, this one... I'm just gonna park my car somewhere where it's not raining so loud. One sec. Sorry, I couldn't find a place that wasn't in the rain. So I'm back home now. Anyway, as I was saying, so I felt like this one had so many characters and so many different layers. And although it is still a quite simple story because of all of the characters, there was so much to tie up. And I felt like it just got I wouldn't say messy, but just more convoluted in the middle. And I think that this film thrives off the really fun, silly, kitschy parts, and it kind of misdirected from just keeping fun. I wouldn't say it was serious by any means, but it slowed down in pace, trying to tell a rounded story along with just silliness and goofiness, and of course, gore. I do want to say quickly before we get into the gore, the things I loved about this film were the performances, but there are some key characters that are original to this film, but are so funny, these sidekick kind of characters, that honestly, I was in stitches. It was so stupid and it was just a joy. It was an absolute joy. And I thought the main characters were really where the magic was gonna happen, but it was in all of the detail and all of the fast-paced nonsense, which gave it the magic. Although, the things that Kevin Bacon does in this film, I'm just so happy that that is recorded. And I was kind of disappointed by Elijah Wood, not because of what he did. He's fantastic, but I wanted more of him. But let's talk about the gore. When it hits in the action scenes, in the fight scenes, it is great. It is great. There is a lot of CGI mixed in with the props, but it works. And it is as gory as I hoped it would be in a really satisfying way. But I wouldn't say it's gory throughout. It's not non-stop fighting action. Like I said, it dips in the middle. It dips with the laughs and it dips also with the gore. But it is well worth it to watch some of these scenes because it does go off. And I'm so glad I got to see the uncut version in the cinema. So I will give it to them. They did really well with gore. It's not like I felt sick or anything like that. It was so over the top, slapstick, black comedy, so it completely worked for me. I think that the film was interesting because it felt like it had not a very heavy message, but they were trying to set up messaging within it, and it does work, especially with the family and the stepfather. I really liked that storyline. The end really got me as well. I thought that was fantastic, but there was just such a dip in the middle because I felt like they had set up so much interesting, different dynamics and fun little characters that they kind of spent their time bouncing around between them all, and it just didn't make for a really fast-paced, action-packed ride. It just kind of dipped in tone as you were kind of being dragged along. And none of that really mattered to the achievement at the end or any of the messaging or what it was trying to do. But the costume design, the lighting, the set design, the way it made its own world around this old kind of anti-hero that people knew from the 80s and turned into a huge franchise was really remarkable. I'm so glad they went that theatrical with it. There is nothing that I want more than that. I would say Elijah Wood reminds me of Penguin Man, and I never thought I'd get to see that on film, so I'm so grateful that I got to see that on the big screen. I think it's the only way to see it, but I do think it's for obviously a particular type of horror audience, and I'm assuming if you're watching this, you probably are into these kinds of films, maybe, but maybe you just wanted to see what I thought. If you are into Troma films, definitely check it out. It's a weird upgrade. I do think I like it more than the original, but it's so strange to have a film that was so 80s brought into modern day and changed to make it even more theatrical and more over the top, but in more of a whimsical sense. So I really appreciated it for that, and because I love a lot of the actors in this, it was so fun watching them just be silly and goofy, and you know they had the best time on set. I'd say go in with expectations just to laugh and see some fun gore. I mean, I went in knowing it wasn't going to be a masterpiece, but I didn't think they were going to take it and make a whole new universe, a whole theatrical kind of superhero, anti-hero movie, and really play into the set design and practical elements. And I'm really glad that they did that because it works. It works as a labor of love and just a creative project for so many creative people. So if you go into it with the expectations that you're going to see a popcorn horror that's going to be funny and really goofy, like over the top goofy with some really fun gore, and you love props, set design, costumes, all that kind of stuff, it is worth your time. It is. I'd probably give this one a personal score. I'm going between a 6 and a 7, to be completely honest with you. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. For originality, that's hard because it's a remake, but you don't see movies like this very often. The other one I would say that is kind of like this that I've seen in the cinema recently, just because the practical effects, was Frankie Frico, which was a nod to 80s film, but in a completely different way. And that had a lot of puppets and practical elements, and it was just zany and weird. And I do really enjoy seeing these films. I think it's a really good change up because I like scary, disturbing shit. So this is really fun for me. But originality in terms of set design and all of those elements, to see this in 2025, I would have given it like an 8, but because I'm going to go by storyline as well, I'm going to give it a 6. And for scare, I'm going to just do a gore score because it was just so silly all the way through, not scary at all. Gore, very good. I would give it an 8 for gore. I think so. There's a scene at the end. Oh my God. Oh my God. Anyway, I really enjoyed taking you guys along with me today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and braving the rain. I really appreciate it. If you haven't checked it out, I've done a massive video recently. It is a very detailed breakdown of some Japanese disturbing films in my own iceberg. If you want to go all the way down to the bottom, check out this video. Grab a snack because it's a long one. Otherwise, check out this other horror video that you may have not seen yet. Thank you guys so much for being here with me today, and I'll talk to you all soon. Stay safe and stay spooky. Bye, friends.